Good afternoon, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. We are very honored to have our guest today on the show. We've been waiting for a number of weeks to have Mr. Jay Levitt. And Jay is the founder and CEO of Lofta. Let me tell you, they are doing remarkable work. They're absolutely revolutionizing sleep apnea disorders with their program. It's an incredible technology that they are building and that they've already built that's through proof of concept. It's absolutely remarkable. They are really changing the entire landscape of sleep apnea, which is a major challenge throughout the world. They have a diagnostic situation where they can help diagnose and, of course, treat sleep apnea, which is such a prevalent problem right now. It's hard to even imagine how big the problem is. Jay, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here.
What you're doing at Lofta is remarkable. You know, you obviously have an e-commerce platform where you help so many people throughout the world with their sleep apnea devices. But the big thing that's happening at sleep apnea at Lofta is you're changing the entire complexion of the landscape through your technology. So Jay, let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet and tell us about what's happening at Lofta right now.
Well, thanks, Andy, and it's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here. There's so much to talk about regarding Lofta. But I'll give you the high altitude view, as you said. We can drill down from there if we wish. Lofta, just kind of bullet point form. I would consider us still to be very much a startup. I founded the company about 5 years ago. We're San Diego based. We're currently about 25 to 30 employees, depending on the day of the week. I'm happy to say that we've almost completely all returned to the workplace and we're all vaccinated. I'll throw that in there. And it's as great as working remotely has been. I think people are happy to have some normalcy. The company, what we really set out to do, Andy, is I had identified through my own personal experience that the traditional journey that individuals need to navigate, not only for discovery, which is learning, but screening, testing, diagnosis / medical directives, going on to treatment if indicated, and then getting support and your follow-on needs met under the traditional scenario is a very arduous, almost a non-starter process. Multiple doctor office visits, sleep labs, going and sleeping in a makeshift bedroom in a business park somewhere, insurance companies, durable medical equipment companies. The traditional path, typically, if you put insurance in the mix, is a 2 to 3 month process and very arduous. And as a result, is not helpful because what happens is it becomes a non-starter for most people. You combine sleep apnea, which is an insidious condition that quite frankly lives in the shadows of sleep, if you will. So a lot of people that have sleep apnea don't connect the dots between other things that they may be experiencing health and wellness wise. And you combine that with a very arduous process, and it's a recipe for, it's not a good recipe for success. So that's really what the catalyst was for starting Lofta. I thought, there's got to be a better way. Unfortunately, I had to go through the traditional path, and thankfully I made it through that path, and my life was transformed when I went on to therapy and was diagnosed, thankfully, many years ago. But I saw, as a serial entrepreneur, I saw a really great opportunity to apply what we're seeing happening in the virtual care, telemedicine, transact your wellness and healthcare via technology space. Of course, that's all been accelerated immensely through COVID because we've all found that it's not possible or practical to go in and see the doctor. And we're doing Zoom videos with our doctors and telemedicine visits, and we're all finding that, hey, that's not a bad way to go. When we started Lofta 5 years ago, of course, we weren't faced with people weren't embracing technology like they are now for healthcare, but we really felt that you could take this 2 or 3 month arduous journey and create a very quick process, typically under a week, where we can pull people through the entire journey, all the way through diagnosis and onto your first night of therapy in about a week. And as a result, and I'll stop here, what we've learned is that if you can pull people through diagnosis quickly, get them vested in their results and what's really going on, that leads to a better efficacy and better outcomes, meaning that people adapt to their therapy and stay on their therapy and adhere to their therapy, et cetera. So I'll stop there because I could go on, but the big idea for Lofta was really revolutionizing the diagnosis and treatment journey so that it could all be done by keeping people out of sleep labs and doctors' offices and dealing with insurance and all the other things that I mentioned. So hopefully that's an earful, but that gives you a little bit of an idea what we're doing. There's also an e-commerce component, as you mentioned, to what we're doing. And that really clearly people that are already on therapy that were either diagnosed by us or someone else, they need to buy new machines, supplies, et cetera. And so we are a participant in the e-commerce space. We like to think that we have a significant brand differentiator when it comes to the e-commerce piece. And of course, our customers or clients or patients that we diagnose tend to be very loyal on their follow-up purchases through Lofta. So there you have it.
Well, Jay, you've done an incredible job, and research shows that 1 in 5 adults in the United States alone have sleep apnea. And really what's happening with this problem is that millions of people don't get the help they need to diagnose sleep apnea. And even after the treatments have begun, they often lack the necessary support. So what happens without that support, a lot of those people give up despite the very serious health risks that sleep apnea can make happen to the individual. And this is why what you're doing at Lofta is so important, because you're now offering this comprehensive screening to people that you really revolutionized. And like you said, it's a 1-week diagnostic process through Lofta, where otherwise going to the traditional routes, it could be months. So let's talk about that. Why has sleep apnea become the thing that is really making your company the leader in the field worldwide? What is it about sleep apnea in your life that got you thinking about this big problem and solving it so beautifully?
Well, thank you for the compliment, and thank you for doing some research and sharing some important statistics about the condition. It truly is a global epidemic or pandemic. It plagues all people, all shapes and sizes. A lot of the stereotypes of, it's going to be, a 55-year-old or older male, overweight with a BMI over X. And, it really, a lot of those stereotypes, while they are markers of people that could be at risk of having sleep apnea, truly don't, fully line up. We have world-class athletes that have gone through our program that, have severe sleep apnea. But to answer your question, I think your question was kind of what got me interested in trying to solve this problem. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it really was first off, I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I've been involved in a lot of different businesses. So when you're a serial entrepreneur, you're always looking for opportunities, right? And some of your best ideas on a Tuesday, by Friday, you realize, I don't know how I ever thought that was even remotely a good idea. It's a terrible idea. But every once in a while, an idea comes along that kind of gets traction and doesn't go away. And this was one of those. And it was really driven by the fact, and you hit on it, that there is so much potential market out there that needs a better solution for diagnosis and getting onto therapy. And the existing path or journey is such a deterrent that I really felt there had to be a better way to kind of reinvent the paradigm, if you will, so that more people would be tested, diagnosed, and ultimately end up on treatment. And the tricky thing about sleep breathing disorders, and primarily we're talking about sleep apnea, is that it is very, as I said before, it's very insidious. A good example is you can snore as loud as a freight train and your neighbors can hear you snoring, and it's coming out of your body and you don't have any awareness of snoring. Yet the neighbors can hear you snoring. Sleep apnea is kind of similar. People that have sleep apnea are not breathing or stop breathing typically for 10 seconds or longer, up to 30, 40, 50, even over 100 times an hour. And when that happens, blood oxygen drops. When blood oxygen drops, your heart has to work harder. Your vital organs are deprived of oxygen, and it leads to a lot of comorbidities, hypertension, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes. I mean, there's a lot of scientifically supported evidence that untreated sleep apnea is not a good thing. So you have this health condition that's kind of lives secretly in the shadows. You have people that have the condition that have a lot of the comorbidities and consequences of it being untreated, but they don't connect the dots. How can you connect the dots to something that you aren't even really aware of or convinced that exists? So it's tricky. It's a tricky condition. And as I said, the traditional path is a non-starter for most people to go through something so arduous to try to find out if you have something that you aren't even really aware of it, other than a bed partner or a significant other. Someone says, you scared the hell out of me last night. I heard you stop breathing and gasp for air, et cetera, et cetera. So, that was my story. And as an entrepreneur, I identified the runway that exists in this space. And it's growing all the time, and the need for a simpler way to get people diagnosed and onto therapy successfully. And that was really what we set out to do. And, the one thing I'll add to that is that what makes the traditional path so arduous are steps that don't go away as a function of the way that we're doing things. So there's still the issue of the practice of medicine, which Lofta doesn't do. We don't practice medicine. We have alliances with multi-state board certified sleep physicians that handle the medical aspects of our journey. There's a lot of things that happen that are part of that arduous journey that we insulate our customer, client, patient from, so that they don't have to feel that part of the process. But it doesn't mean that stuff goes away. There's a lot of compliance, licensing, legal ramifications, privacy laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that we have to adhere to as a company. So it was a big lift. It wasn't like, here's an idea, why don't we get a telemedicine platform and start marketing on the internet that we have a better way to get diagnosed and treated for sleep apnea. We still have to deal with everything that makes the process so arduous. But we're able to do that in a way that insulates the client from the delays that those issues create, as well as just the overall friction. And my background is direct to consumer, and so whether it's sleep apnea or home mortgages or cell phones or whatever it may be, I'm very interested in consumer experiences and broken spaces, and this space is certainly broken, and we're trying to do our part to fix it, and we're having some success.
Jay, it's unbelievable. It really is a remarkable entrepreneurial story, a remarkable entrepreneurial journey. Entrepreneurs watching the show can learn so much from this, and probably 1 in 5 of the people watching the show have sleep apnea, which is very interesting. And what you've been able to do, Jay, is you've really been able to take a needlessly complex experience and simplify it. And that's really the run to daylight, because, throughout the years dealing with sleep apnea, people had to go through, the maze of insurance, They had to spend overnights in sleep labs. They didn't get the support that they needed. When they picked up the phone, nobody would pick up the phone. And you really have been able to change all that at Lofta, because really with your expert guidance and your technology, you provide everything, the screening tools, the testing kits, the supplies, and it's all accessible in one place, in one very easy to use platform. And that really was the key, because it's a huge problem that so many people had. And you said to yourself, this is a complex answer to a problem that's very, very immense. Let me simplify sort of what happens to help these people out. And I know, Jay, that you put the people with the sleep apnea at the heart of your mission. In other words, it's all about them, because the faster you can get them your diagnostic tool, the better they're going to sleep and the better their lives become. Is that the way it all works, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, you really nailed it. I mean, one of the, when I first embarked on Lofta and the idea and the concept, I wasn't thinking so much about the impact we could have on changing lives. I was thinking about the business opportunity. I was aware of the fact that we were going to change lives, because I know how much my life changed when I was diagnosed and successfully on treatment. So I understood how impactful it could be on people's lives, but I really underestimated how much we, Lofta, would change people's lives. And that's really been the big reward here so far. I mean, we have grown men, and I'm not making this up, we have grown men that literally call us, and this has happened more than once, to thank us, that are literally crying, literally on the phone or weeping, because their life has changed so profoundly since they've started to treat their sleep apnea. People will come up to them and say, did you lose weight? Or, you look different, you look great, something's different. Did you get a haircut? What is it? And these people will say, I'm sleeping, I'm waking up rested. I had no idea how exhausted I was. I didn't know why I had daytime headaches. I didn't. So that's been the big payoff and the big reward, to your point, is that we're really changing lives, and we're really helping people where, this condition left untreated, it's slow and patient and insidious, but it affects longevity. It affects, it has a lot of impact on people's lives. So for us, the big payoff is that we're growing that newly diagnosed market. And that's what I'm interested in doing. I mean, I'm interested in growing the newly diagnosed market. And we're certainly on a monthly basis, without giving precise numbers, we're, in the thousands of newly diagnosed patients a month. So, and we're just starting to scale and, kind of come out of the gates with the concept and the idea, and we're already seen some great success there.
That's really incredible, Jay. And again, you're really helping so many people. I imagine so many people that after they go through your diagnostic tool, it only takes them a week now, and you start providing the types of things to help with their sleep apnea, their entire world changes, because all the research, as we know, shows that when you're not sleeping well, or you don't get a good night's sleep, or you don't get that REM sleep, only bad things happen. Your health deteriorates, you have high stress, everything can happen because of this. You can lose your hair, your complexion goes away, you can gain weight without getting the right amount of sleep. Nothing good can happen to the body. Now, when we think about what you're doing, Jay, obviously this simpler, more streamlined approach really resonates. And the other thing that resonates for me, especially through COVID, is, you do through your platform, through your program and system, you do at Lofta an in-home diagnosis with no medical office or sleep labs. And I love that, because I don't want to go to a medical office right now if I don't need to. If I can do the same thing at home, that makes all the difference in the world to me. So I would imagine people not really wanting to venture out very much here in the last year or year and a half probably has helped your positioning. And now it's sort of becoming mainstream. Why go to the medical office when I can just stay at home and get diagnosed at home?
Absolutely. And, I think you nailed it, but, let's take COVID out of the equation for a minute. And yes, COVID has allowed us all, including myself, to really embrace technology as a very efficient and, arguably more effective way to deal with certain medical wellness health conditions. Not all, but a lot, and I don't think that goes away post-COVID. But when you look at sleep apnea and you think about, at least 2 doctor visits, one with your general, one with a sleep physician, 1 or 2 nights in a sleep lab, dealing with a durable medical equipment company if you're diagnosed to get therapy, dealing with insurance, etc. It's I'm repeating myself, but it's a non-starter. So if you have a population of people out there that know they have sleep apnea, many people that have sleep apnea know they have sleep apnea. They maybe were even previously diagnosed, but never made it through the whole process, never ended up on therapy, etc. So presented with something that can be done quickly and efficiently, credibly, in a way that yields equal results to an in-lab workup, and you can do all this from home and quickly on your terms, on your timeline, is a game changer. And yeah, virtual care technology, telemedicine, we're all embracing that more. So that's been that's created a tailwind for our business, which has been good. And of course, a lot of people are stuck at home through COVID and figure this is a good time for me to deal with this issue. The question and the conversation of breathing and respiration has been more front and center with COVID, because as we know, COVID can impact that. So people that have sleep apnea became more concerned, untreated sleep apnea have become more concerned to some extent that if they did contract COVID with sleep apnea, that could be a really bad combination. And so it was a catalyst for a lot of people to finally do something about their sleep apnea, because they realized having it untreated and getting COVID could be, potentially not an ideal combination.
That makes all the sense in the world. And we agree with you 100%. We speak to many of the worldwide leading experts in their fields, like you in the sleep apnea space. And we all believe, as you do, that in-home diagnosis, telemedicine, that's even going to accelerate even more. So it's not going to be like COVID is over and then everybody's going to rush out to the doctor's offices. It's going to be exactly the opposite. Now that we see that we don't have to go to the doctor's offices, that's going to accelerate at an even higher pace. So that positions your company, Lofta, very, very well. One of the things, Jay, when people are watching the show and they're listening to you, and for the 1 in 5 people probably watching the show that have the sleep apnea, they might be saying to themselves, well, is there a state-of-the-art telemedicine component to this as well? Is that part of the entire Lofta, platform for people to go through the diagnostic tool that you offer?
Phenomenal question. So Lofta is clearly not the only company that offers at-home sleep testing. There are a number of companies that individuals can go through to do what I'll call a mail order home sleep test. Lofta we do not consider ourselves a mail order home sleep test company. We consider, and we're one of the few companies that has a true end-to-end solution. So a lot of the companies that are doing mail order home sleep tests are offering home sleep tests so individuals can check a box and say, I was tested, I was diagnosed, here's my prescription. Now sell me the CPAP machine that I know I needed all along, or put me on therapy that I knew that I needed all along. Lofta doesn't view it that way. We really view our relationship with the client starting with discovery, which is education, because education's important, because you need to have people have ownership in this experience and be vested in why they're doing this. So that certain amount of education is important, and moving them through the whole process, screening, testing, diagnosis, onto therapy and support is all part of what we do. So we're really focused on experience. Our brand, we don't look at ourselves as selling widgets. We don't look at ourselves as a mail order home sleep test company so someone can check a box. We really view our brand the big brand differentiator for us is being able to create a lifetime experience that our clients can rely on, a brand our clients can rely on to help them wherever they might be on that spectrum of diagnosis and treatment. And so, it becomes very important after people go on therapy to have access to on-demand support. So we have sleep coaches, and we call our therapy program the Right Start Therapy Program. And it includes a whole host of services and support, on-demand, unlimited. And then the diagnosis part of our process is currently called the Complete Path. And so those that go through the Complete Path or the diagnosis or testing, if appropriate, often go onto our therapy program, which is called the Right Start Therapy Program. And it's not delivering a machine to someone and saying, thank you very much. It's really the start of what we hope and is often a long-term, relationship with a lot of interaction with the patient downstream. We also have multi-state board certified sleep physicians that are handling all the medical aspects of the process and are available for follow-up when Lofta is not, wouldn't be appropriate to handle certain kinds of matters that come up that would fall into the medical realm. So we stay clear of that, but our physicians are great at supporting that aspect of it.
I love it, Jay, so much. It's really remarkable. So for the entrepreneurs watching, let's summarize what Jay's thought through with his world-class team. He's really providing a simpler, more streamlined approach to something that was very arduous and took complex steps and way too much time. Number two, he offers in-home diagnosis with absolutely no medical office or sleep labs to go to, which is incredible. Number three, his telemedicine is a state-of-the-art program. Number four, we haven't even spoken about it. He has an elevated e-commerce platform. So in other words, whatever you need with regard to sleep apnea, you can buy it on his platform. He's got some of the most wonderful things that you could possibly imagine. He has, I think, the world's smallest CPAP device in the world that he sells on his website. Is absolutely remarkable. So besides everything that's going on, you can go right to his elevated e-commerce platform and get everything you need for your situation. And then number five, which is really sort of the key, and you can tell from Jay's passion, he loves this, is that he gives ongoing personal support, an elevated support experience. So once you engage with his company, it doesn't end. He keeps giving you support as much as you need, so that he and his team are really working hand in hand with you to better your health. And what that means is that your health really is of utmost importance to the company's mission and their strategy. And then what happens for entrepreneurs watching is you feel so much better when you wake up in the morning. And what's going to be the first thing you think about? You're going to think about how Lofta helped you out. So it's really a remarkable circle that Jay's been able to put together. And Jay, congratulations on really putting this program together. It's truly remarkable. Now, let's turn to entrepreneurship just for a second, because you're a serial entrepreneur. You're very successful. You've got this great startup that's 5 years along that you've called a startup in Lofta. You're doing remarkably well. We can't talk about the numbers really out loud, but it's doing super well. So when we think about entrepreneurship, Jay, a lot of younger entrepreneurs watch the show and maybe they're saying to themselves, wow, I'm watching this Jay Levitt. He's 5 years in. He figured out a big problem that he could solve, and he's solving it in a very beautiful way. I'm personally having a challenge in my company. I'm hitting a roadblock. I'm hitting a pothole, and I'm getting a little freaked out. I'm getting a little worried that, I don't know how to overcome this obstacle. So maybe you can share with them some of your expertise and background as an entrepreneur to help them see their way clear on how to get through the obstacles in the road.
Well, the first thing I would say is if you don't have problems, you don't have a business. And I borrow that from my grandfather, who I think I originally coined that, at least from what the first time I heard it. And I think it's true. I think as an entrepreneur, problems in the business problems that you might be having in executing your concept present opportunities. I think there's always kind of opportunities underneath the problems. I think that if it were easy, there's probably not, I think businesses, I think when there are challenges and the lift is heavy, there's probably also opportunity. And, we make our business look very easy, but it's a really complicated business. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes because we're dealing with healthcare. And when you deal with healthcare, by default, you're going into a business with a lot of headwind and friction. So I think that, really, if you're trying to get a business off the ground and you're running into problems, I think, first of all, to the extent possible, rely on people that are smarter than you and know what you're good at and know what you're not good at. And to the extent that you can, and it's not always possible because sometimes smart, great people cost money, but most of us can probably find people in our lives that will mentor us and that will give us advice and counsel along the way. Thankfully, for a while, there were people with levels of expertise that far exceed my own that the business wasn't at a stage where I could simply hire those people. We're now, thankfully, we've been able to bring on some just incredible talent and do things that, I'm certain would never have occurred under my own watch, if you will. So, rely on, tap into and rely on individuals that are smarter than you. Be willing to change course if things aren't working. Be willing to have the courage to do things that might be counter to what you think are kind of the easy ways of doing things. So, God, there's so much, business advice that can be given, certainly that I've learned along the way. But I think the biggest thing is that not to look at problems and friction necessarily in a negative way, but look at where the opportunities lie and what are those problems telling you, because those can be the biggest guides to where the success lies.
I love it, Jay. That makes all the sense in the world. You've taken your own advice very, very well in building this 5-year-old startup that is probably going to be approaching its hockey stick growth curve, hopefully, God willing, very, very soon, because it's just makes all the sense in the world. You've revolutionized the sleep apnea disorder. I wanted to take a minute, first of all, to thank you on behalf of all the people that are now walking around in their daytime feeling so much better and being even a more remarkable asset to our community and to society, just because they feel better from coming on your program and being, in your system and part of your comprehensive revolution to really help people with sleep apnea. This has been a great discussion, Jay. I've been waiting to get you on the show for a number of weeks. You're awesome, and what you're doing is super cool. And I think our entrepreneurs are going to learn so much from watching the show. So, Jay, thank you so much for coming on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series.
Thank you for having me, Andy.